Hi, everybody. Happy Thursday. I hope you're having a good day today so far and having a good week. My week is going pretty good. I am, as you're listening to this recording, I am going on to my 4th day of my new job, and I absolutely love it. I don't actually start training until Monday, but I have been being trained on some other stuff that we do that was real easy, so that, I kind of know how to do other stuff if I'm ever needed. Maybe if someone calls in sick or whatever, doesn't matter, but I'm learning how to do other things in a different department right now, and everybody is super friendly. I've actually made a pretty good friend so far. She's super nice. She's the one that's really been training me. I've been sitting with her and doing things with her, and that's been a lot of fun. And I really, really like it. It's nice getting to dress nice and do your hair and do a little bit of makeup and not be sweating all day. So, yeah, I'm really enjoying it, and I'm glad that I decided to go ahead and do it. It can be nerve-wracking to do something different when you've been doing the same thing for over 10 years, and to step out and do something different and have to learn how to do everything. And it's not something that you already know how to do. But I think I'll be fine. I think I can handle it. I learned how to do everything in the department that I'm in on the first day. But most of the time I spent on Wednesday just doing like all of my paperwork, enrolling in benefits, and doing all of that. I had to watch an orientation video and getting all of that set up, my direct deposit. So I didn't do a whole lot of working today other than that, but yeah, I'm really enjoying it. So I said that I would do a video where we would look more in depth at what's going on with the Marilyn Manson lawsuits with Evan Rachel Wood. So that's what I'm going to do today. I didn't plan it out, just so you know. There's so much to look at on this website that I just didn't even know what to look at. So I thought, well, I'll just skim through some of it, just kind of on the fly, I guess. And not that I really had time to sit down and plan anything anyway. So, first thing we're going to look at is we're going to look at some of the different accusers. Now, mostly everybody knows about Evan Rachel Wood and, like, some of the stuff that she said. But what they do have is, like, 5, 6, 7 parts to their relationship. And I'm not going to go through all of that, but if you look at this first one here, this is from January 2007 to October 2008, and he originally met Evan Rachel Wood when she was 18. Yeah, when she was 18, and he was 37, and he was married to Dita Von Teese at the time. And so they did an interview about when they met. And he asked her to be in a horror film called Phantasmagoria, The Visions of Lewis Carroll. I don't know what that is. You can look into that. But anyway, so he asked her to be in that. And they do both say that there was no romantic relationship between them while he was still married to Dita Von Teese. Evan said that they became quote-unquote movie buddies while Dita was away in Las Vegas. I know they both say that there wasn't anything there, but I personally have a hard time believing that. But maybe not. I don't know. But Dita did file for divorce on December 29th, 2006, citing irreconcilable differences. With lifestyle differences and Manson's friendship with Evan being the primary factors. I'm going to say that I'm assuming there was some alleged cheating going on. I wouldn't doubt that, but they deny it. So make of that what you will. So Evan explains how their relationship began after his divorce. So she expressed how unfair she has been attacked for simply, quote-unquote, falling in love. So she says, I've seen blogs where I've been called a slut, a whore, that say I should be condemned to death simply because I've fallen in love. Surely the fact that we are both prepared to go through all this proves just how important and real our love is. No, everyone is so worried that I'm losing myself, but really I'm finding myself. I've never been more comfortable in my own skin. Well, what I will say is if in fact their relationship as quote unquote friends, movie buddies, is what caused his divorce with Dita Von Teese, he is to blame for that because he should have known better. But so is she, because she's not a little kid and she knew he was married. And you cannot tell me that you don't know that at 18 years old, that hanging out with a married man while his wife is away is that you know that that's inappropriate. Come on. That doesn't mean that you can't have feelings for somebody. Sometimes you don't control who you have feelings for, but you do control what you do with those feelings. Okay. So in 2016, she talked to Rolling Stone. She said, I met somebody that promised freedom and expression and no judgments, and I was craving danger and excitement. I looked at my mother one day and said, Mom, I'm going to go on this tour bus for 8 months and see the world and have a crazy journey and find myself. And if people aren't okay with that, I'm sorry, but I can't live my life for other people. Now, I don't know what, is it Nabokov's Lolita? I don't know what that is. Apparently Evan had an obsession with that. On July 7th, 2009, after the first breakup of Evan and Manson, she was interviewed by Vanity Fair about her film Whatever Works. Never heard of it. And she was asked about Lolita. And it's a film about the relationship of a young woman and a much older man. And she talked about her obsession as a young girl with it. It's clear in the interview that Evan did not view her relationship with Manson as being in the Lolita-like territory, since she does not even mention him. Well, probably for good reason. So I don't care about that. So then they did, you had the heart-shaped glasses video. And it says here, Marilyn Manson released the album Eat Me, Drink Me on June 5th, 2007. In many ways, it is a biographical album about the depression he felt after his separation in October 2006 and the renewed life he felt when he became friends with Evan and began dating in January 2007. So Heart-Shaped Glasses was inspired by Evan, and he wrote it after Evan came to his house one day wearing heart-shaped glasses. Ooh, okay. So that's where that comes from. It says here that the video begins with Evan and Manson having passionate sex, although the footage is not explicit in any way. Remember this. Remember heart-shaped glasses and this scene that was filmed, because this will come back, okay? So you got that. And then, I'm not going to say this, but Evan Rachel Wood has a list. It says, Evan Rachel Wood accompanied Marilyn Manson for most of his Rape of the World tour from May 2007 to March 2008. And on May 27, 2010, Marilyn Manson posted on MySpace this list that Evan wrote during this tour while in Glasgow, Scotland, which shows a compatible mentality with Manson. So there's that. They're weird people, okay? They're weird people, okay? Don't care about how people don't get Manson's irony and satire. You either like him or you don't. I don't, personally. I'm not saying he's a bad person, like, the way he is with people. I don't like his music. I don't like his style. He's creepy to me. And then they talk about their life together. So, there's that. That's part one. Part two, I don't know if I'm going to get into all of that. You can always go check all this stuff out. But it's the timeline of their relationship from 2006 to 2010. And I don't really know how it's working, because then you have this one here for part 3, November 2008 to May 2009. I'm not sure if there's just something specific that stands out during this time frame. So I don't know. That's what I don't get. So here's a Manson painting of Evan Rachel Wood titled Pretty Persuasion. That's creepy. So there you go. Anyway, that's all that. Here it talks about how Evan Rachel Wood initiated the romantic relationship with Marilyn Manson. So, in part 1 of Phoenix Rising, she does go into detail describing their first kiss. She talks about how they met, how she went to work on Phantasmagoria, drinking absinthe, and like she said, they became movie buddies. And it says, now she had to leave and go to film a movie, so she wanted to say goodbye to Manson. Evan then describes what happened next. Manson went over to her, said he was going to miss her. They embraced, and he kissed her before she could fully say she was going to miss him too. Very graphic about that kiss. So there you go. That's gross. So it says the story from 2020 contradicts a prior story Evan told of their first romantic encounter. So in the August issue of LUK magazine in 2007, when she was 19, it was titled Dark Angel, she explained how she met him in LA earlier that year. It says that we became movie buddies until one night when we suddenly looked into one another's eyes and knew. This story is very different from her story 13 years later, when she describes the first kiss pretty much as an assault when she was 18 and he was married to Dita, while in 2007 she recalls how her romance with Manson started with a mutual chemistry between the two at 19 after Manson and Dita were divorced. So it looks like she's lying at one time or another, and it would seem like she was lying in the beginning so they could cover up that they had this little relationship while he was married, and that she kind of forgot those lies. Manson's story in 2007. So on May 17th, 2007, Spin magazine published a revealing interview with Manson by Jonathan Ames that tells us his side of the story. So it says, at one of their earlier meetings about the Phantasmagoria project, Evan jokingly walked in wearing heart-shaped glasses and looked like the movie poster of Stanley Kubrick's Lolita. Manson was immediately struck by the humorous reference, and it pierced his heart. It turned out both Evan and Manson were Nabokov fans, and Manson, who is a great believer in connections and coincidences, would point out that Nabokov translated Alice in Wonderland into Russian, and that Lewis Carroll was long rumored to have had a young girl fetish, not to mention the 19-year age difference between himself and Evan. This clever act of Evan is what inspired Manson to write the song Heart-Shaped Glasses. Then you have the second initiation. The relationship began when she was 19. Manson and Dita were separated, which was after December 25th of 2006. Both Evan and Manson denied in other interviews that they had a sexual relationship before Dita filed for divorce on December 29th, 2006, and this falls in line with that timeline. Apparently Manson was wildly depressed over losing Dita, and Evan turned to him and said that she would die for him, that they could die together. It might sound strange, Manson says, but this made me want to live. So to confirm that this is probably true, later on in 2009, Manson was promoting the high end of low, and he and Evan were separated, and he would talk about how the album sprung from broken promise Evan made to him that they would die together. And when Manson proposed the first time to Evan in 2008 and she rejected his proposal, he saw this as an act of betrayal, which springboarded into fictional fantasy of Manson taking revenge on her for breaking his heart, which is what Heart-Shaped Glasses warns about. Third initiation, the Spin interview. He also talks about what may be his version of the story of their first kiss. He says that one day Evan was licking a heart-shaped lollipop, and then she kissed him. So there you go. So it's really kind of confusing about their whole relationship, really. But here, there's a statement here after her first breakup with Marilyn Manson. It says, Manson and I both decided to take some time apart so we could concentrate on work. Someone used that opportunity to kick us while we were down and sell a completely false story. Manson owns the house he lives in. My brother has never stayed there, and the person that said such horrible things about Manson being controlling and emotionally abusive is certainly no source close to me. Manson has been by my side and taken care of me through the best and worst times. I love him as a person and as an artist. I will always be proud to have been a part of that. If any more attacks are made on us, it is the act of a desperate, selfish person who is angry to no longer be a part of my life. No further comment will be made, and we request our privacy at this time. So there you go. She was saying that he was not abusive or controlling or anything like that, which is completely different from what she's saying now. I don't know if it matters that Marilyn Manson was having a relationship with Lindsay Usich while he was engaged to Evan, other than the fact that upset Evan very, very much, and maybe that's why she's doing what she's doing, because I'm pretty sure he's married to Lindsay now. I think that's the same Lindsay. So, that might be why she's acting that way and doing all of this stuff. So who knows? Who knows where it's coming from or why she's decided to flip her story and start saying these things about Manson when she never said them before. So this is a list of everything that Evan Rachel Wood has ever said about Marilyn Manson from 2010 to 2015. She says here, I mean, dating Marilyn Manson, it's kind of impossible to keep that out of the spotlight. He had a hand in raising me. Oh, I'm always going to love that guy. He's a genius. He's an amazing artist. We're still friends. Some things just aren't meant to be. And that was October 22nd, 2010 on Nylon. So New York Magazine, April 7th, 2011, she said, we, Evan speaking of her mother, had a bad breakup. We hadn't been apart for more than a week my whole life. We shared a room, we shared a bed. She was constantly by my side all the time until the minute I turned 18. I hopped on Marilyn Manson's tour bus and was like, I'm going to have an adolescence. I didn't really get a normal childhood. Manson gave me what I felt I'd missed out on, where you get to experiment and cut loose and change and grow. I lived 50 lifetimes in those 4 years. Esquire, April 17th, 2011. So I was always into very androgynous things. Guys, girls, I'm into androgyny in general. She says this helps explain the appeal of her ex, Marilyn Manson. I think one of the things that freak people out so much is that we look so different. True, that was part of it, but it was more than that. If Evan Rachel Wood represents America's rebellious teenage daughter, Manson represents the 40-year-old goth in the band down the road she would date just to spite us. They broke off their engagement in August. The inevitable residual tattoos. Behind her right ear, the number 15, a significant one for the two of them. Behind her left ear, something that looks like a heart combined with an infinity symbol. You know, forever love, she explains. Whatever. Independent, October 31st, 2011. The funny thing is, I was a really good kid because I was raised extremely strict and I was working a lot. My mother wanted to be really, really careful because in this business, it's easy to go off the deep end, but I think that it worked against her because when I turned 18, I had been so sheltered for so long that I just exploded. I am glad I did because it teaches you a lot about yourself. Now I've got it out of my system and I am ready to settle down. Just because a relationship ends doesn't mean that it failed. I don't think, this is on her breakup with her former fiance, Jamie Bell, because she rekindled her romance with British actor and Billy Elliot star. Oh, okay, Jamie Bell. Okay. I don't think I would be the person I am today without him, meaning Manson. He is inspiring. The timing was right, and I felt the door was open to me to really explore, express myself, and take risks. And by the way, her child is the child of Jamie Bell. Mail Online, November 26, 2011. People thought Marilyn Manson and I were crazy. That's because we look so different. But if you'd hung out with us, you'd have thought we were pretty normal. People look at Marilyn and they form an opinion, but we did normal things. I cooked dinner. I'm always going to love him. We were engaged, but we were both ready to move on. Marilyn gave me permission to be myself. He said, you're so young, you're really smart, explore that, and have fun. Daily Beast, November 16th, 2013. People were pretty mean, she says. At the time, I hadn't yet been exposed to that kind of cruelty from strangers. Barely an adult, Wood saw herself plastered on the covers of tabloids with knee-jerk standard fair care cover line splashed across her image. What is she thinking? If people were wondering why I was acting so-called crazy or like a teenager, it's because I was. People go through phases. People make mistakes. People go through life and don't get it right every time. On Twitter, May 18th, 2014, the day Marilyn Manson's mother died, she said, an old friend of mine just lost someone very close to them. I know we don't speak anymore, but my heart is with you today. Maybe they weren't speaking anymore because of the whole Jamie Bell thing. I don't know. And then August 20th from Netaporter.com's The Edit, 2015. I thought I was in love. I wasn't doing it to prove a point or be rebellious. I wanted to break a mold for sure. I knew I was edgier, more alternative and weird, and he was just what I needed because I felt really free with him, and that freedom was attractive. Okay, we don't have to keep going. Oh, that was the last one anyway. People were cruel, she said. So, a lot of nice things. There's nothing in there about anything that he did to her, okay? But then you have her radicalization. And apparently on November 17th, 2016, we had the opportunity to read about how Evan Rachel Wood became radicalized. This was when Rolling Stone interviewed her about being the highest ranked star on IMDb. How did she become so highly ranked? Though she was mainly known up to that point for dating and being engaged to Marilyn Manson, now she was the star on one of the most successful shows on television, Westworld. I've never heard of that. On Westworld, she played a heroic android named Dolores, and it was the biggest role of her career. Before this role, Evan played in roles noted for their shock factor or subversiveness, and she had a talent for trauma. With Dolores, she finally was given the opportunity to also be a heroine, and by her own account, she was ready for the first time in her life to not only play a heroine on a television show, but to channel that spirit into her everyday life. Okay, so there was that. So, as Evan is going through the process of transformation in 2016, according to her accounts, Marilyn Manson still held a dear place in her heart, and she viewed her relationship with him as being a positive one. Okay? Alright. Then you have social media. Played a major role in her radicalization of the world in many and varied ways. Her Twitter account reflected this. Today, she is no longer on Twitter, and it is difficult to refer to, though there are specific cases. But through Twitter, Evan was given an unfiltered voice, and she often came off as being either a victim or self-righteous, especially after 2016, though there were seeds of it even a few years prior. In 2014, she talked about having a horrible time working for Vanity Fair when she was 15, and in 2015, her Twitter feed became a news story when she discussed society's LGBT stereotypes. What became troubling was that she often came off as someone who wanted you to feel sorry for her, and if you didn't, then there was something clearly wrong with you. You can Google Evan Rachel Wood Twitter to see how her use of social media platform kept her in the headlines. Not to mention, and I don't know if it's going to bring that up in here, but, oh, it is. Okay, never mind. It is. In February 2016 interview for Elle, Evan was asked if she was going to endorse a candidate for president. At this point, she said the following. So she said, "It's a hard thing. We're living in an America where we're really divided. I think there are some things from both political parties that make sense, honestly, and things from both sides that don't. My views are generally more liberal, but I need to do more research before I figure out how I feel about a specific candidate. But I really hope we can unite more. Instead of lashing out at each other and infighting, I'd love to learn more about our disagreements. Also, there's much more misinformation about quote-unquote the other side and their beliefs. I hope Americans can take the other side to lunch and just listen to what they have to say. Fighting words and hatred aren't going to get us anywhere." That's pretty sensible to say, right? She said she would love to go to lunch with Donald Trump. She'd be like, "Hey man, seriously, what's up? What's your deal? I'd love to listen to him, but he'd have to listen to me." Okay, so that's pretty sensible to what she's saying there, but I do believe she referred to Donald Trump as actually raping the American citizens, okay? So her bisexuality advocate in her video in honor of Pride Month, she came out as bisexual in 2011, And she revealed that what attracted her most to Manson was not only his in-your-face liberation, but also his androgyny, which we already knew that. She also had an obsession with David Bowie. So you've got all that. Then you have the sexual abuse charges of Amber Heard against Johnny Depp. So on May 23rd of 2016, when Amber Heard filed for divorce from Johnny Depp and obtained her temporary restraining order and all of that. We know all of that, right? So in the June 8th issue of Rolling Stone, Evan was asked, as far as abusive situations, recently you took to Twitter to blast the media coverage surrounding Amber Heard's allegations of abuse against Johnny Depp. In particular, you took issue with the fact that Heard's bisexuality was unnecessarily highlighted in several articles. So she replied, I can't comment on the case or any of the allegations of abuse, but as a bisexual, I do think it's a problem when we exploit that and group it in with some category of deviant, shady behavior. I think it's really crappy way to do journalism, and I do take offense. It's done just to get a headline, while at the same time holding back a very large group of people that already have so much to overcome. You have nothing to overcome, trust me. It's just one more dig. So that's an issue that's close to my heart. And it's on the album as well, my journey to figure out who I was with my own sexuality, because it can really apply to so many different aspects of your life. Then you have Ilma Gore. So, in March 22nd of 2016, Evan published in Nylon an interview she did with Ilma Gore. So, Evan and Ilma, they just became friends. Ilma was known as an artist, and she's a gender fluid futurist, my bad. And she rose to fame with her politically charged artwork that went viral of a pastel rendering called Make America Great Again, featuring a very nude Donald Trump with a very small male's appendage. And it was supposed to be about the connection between genitals and power and how we define masculinity, all using Trump's body as a jumping off point. And she was banned from all social networks for this image. So I may have confused Evan Rachel Wood and Ilma Gore in the fact that they said Trump was raping American citizens. Might have been Ilma Gore that said that. So it says here that in the interview, Evan says, I know I'm guilty of not standing up for things as much as I could because I could get physically hurt, killed, or tortured for the rest of my life. And that holds a lot of people back. We are being beaten into submission, sometimes quite literally. People are going to have to start really putting themselves on the line. I wish it didn't have to come to that. Well, because then ban me. I don't want to be in your book if that's how it's going to be. And if you do, I'll get on my megaphone and use whatever voice I have to draw attention to how messed up, unfair, and frankly un-American it really is. These people are so delusional, honestly, to think that they are so oppressed and beaten into submission when in fact it is quite literally the other way around. Truly, truly is. Okay. Now she's a mother. She moved to Nashville. This is where she lived in LA. She got custody and got permission from the courts to take her son to Nashville away from his father by introducing the fake FBI letter that she wrote and used as her reason to get into Nashville and take her son with her. That they were in danger, she's a key witness in an FBI investigation against Marilyn Manson, and they're in danger staying in LA. They have to go to Nashville. So there's that. Okay. We have playing Dolores in Westworld. Then she announced that she had been raped. So this was on November 9th of 2016, the first day after Donald Trump was elected president. And in reaction to Trump's election campaign and political views and to his defeated presidential nominee Hillary Clinton, Teresa Shook of Hawaii created a Facebook event and invited friends to march in Washington and protest. So there were similar Facebook pages created by Evie Harmon, Fontaine Pearson, Bob Bland, who's a New York fashion designer, Breanne Butler, and others. Okay, so the Women's March was a worldwide protest on January 21st of 2017, the day after the inauguration of President Donald Trump. Supporters of Donald Trump saw the idea of a women's march as a positive event as long as it was about women's equality and rights. But on the day of the march, it seemed to have devolved into more of a political event that excluded women who supported Trump or had more conservative views when it came to issues like abortion. So, according to the November 16th issue of Rolling Stone, Evan's interviewer received an email on the morning of November 9th from Evan, apparently inspired by the election of Donald Trump, announcing for the first time that she not only suffered sexual abuse, but she clearly explained that she had been raped, not by one person, but by two people. One person was a guy that worked in a bar, and the other was someone she had been in a long-term relationship with. That's how she left it, okay? Reading through this letter, it becomes obvious why Evan wrote this the day after Donald Trump was elected. Like many liberal women at the time, she felt strongly that the time had come for a woman to be the president of the United States, and all the polls and news sources were projecting Hillary to be the winner, making Donald Trump's victory a true heartfelt loss and upset. Okay, whatever. So when she describes her two rapes, it comes off as being scripted into a perfect scenario of victimhood as to why she had not revealed or realized before that she was raped. So the first one, which was by an unnamed man that she was in a relationship with, she didn't realize it was a rape because she did not know you could be raped by a sexual partner. Oh, okay. And while the second rape in a bar she blamed herself for and did not fight back more, but now she realizes neither was her fault and neither was okay. She also says that these two played a role in her suicide attempt when she was 22 years old. So there you go. This woman is unhinged. Okay? She is a manipulator. I'm not going to go through any more of this, okay? She did testify in 2018 before Congress for the Phoenix Act, right? So let's check this out. It says, as waves of sexual assault accusations against powerful figures in entertainment, politics, and business surfaced, which led to a growing public recognition of the widespread nature of sexual assault in American culture, some activists went a step further and fought for legal protections for abuse survivors. On February 27, 2018, Evan Rachel Wood appeared before the House Judiciary Committee to testify about her experiences with sexual assault on behalf of the Sexual Assault Survivors Bill of Rights Act, which went into effect at the federal level in 2016, but still needed to be implemented in all 50 states. The law gives sexual abuse survivors the right to have their rape kit preserved for the entire duration of the statute of limitations, or up to 20 years, as well as the right to know their forensic results. And I have no problem with these bills being passed, okay? I don't have a problem with it. I have a problem with you putting yourself as that person when you're a liar. So this is her testimony about being raped and tortured by an unnamed abuser. I don't want to read all of this, honestly, because I just don't care what she had to say. Because the more you dig into it, but we don't have to read it. We're just going to look at the commentary, okay? They talk about her fashion choice. They say she's widely known for her one of the most stylish actresses of Hollywood. Like I said, I don't know who she is other than because of this. That is it. I've never heard of her until this. I may have heard of her back when they started officially dating, but I don't know who she is. I've never seen anything she's been in. So great. I don't know what. She chose not to dress in any type of pantsuit or dress, nor wear any makeup, but she chose to seemingly shop at a local thrift shop and buy the most plain-looking clothes you can imagine. Okay, great. Number 2, we as women must always alter how we say things. Only a woman with a victim mentality would say something like this. Yes. Yes, yes, yes. She feels she cannot be honest, but the statement tells us more what she thinks about men than what she thinks about women. As if she is saying that men cannot think outside of how they are conditioned to think, which means that if you don't believe this testimony Evan is about to give, then you're still backwards in your thinking, enslaved to how you were conditioned by society. The reality is, Evan is the one conditioning us to think such thoughts in order to receive her absurd testimony as truth. Number 3, quote, I thought I was the only human who experienced this. You thought you were the only woman that has ever been raped, beaten, tortured, or whatever you want us to believe? Right. This is the point where Evan thinks her listeners are so stupid that we're going to just accept this as true. No one listening to her actually does believe this, but almost everyone listening is being conditioned by Evan to believe this, because if you don't believe she was an innocent, naive, weak-minded, weak-willed, manipulated little girl from the beginning, then her testimony is going to fall apart. The sentence is so absurd that I feel like highlighting it is more than enough for everyone to see its absurdity. Number 4, quote, I carried so much guilt and confusion about my response to the abuse. Never trust a radical activist, and statements like this in the context she gives it are precisely why. Here, Eben is continuing to condition us away from how society has allegedly conditioned us. But before she can do this, she has to admit that she also was falsely conditioned by society. In Eben's mind, society always blames women. As an activist, Eben wants to change society. Yeah, I get that. So basically, she's presenting herself as a victim of society before anything else. So she can't convince us that her abuser, who she does later claim to be Marilyn Manson, did all these horrific things to her over the course of 3 years, and then convince us why she never talked about it for almost a decade, unless she was a victim of this conditioning by society. But here's the problem. Why do we assume this is true? If Eben is going to make such a sociological claim upon which her case rests, she needs to prove it through sociological research. However, she doesn't do this, nor has she done this till this day, because she's assuming we are as naive as she is. Number 5, quote, after years of processing and looking back, I see these experiences so clearly for what they are. How do you know you are seeing things more clearly now than you did then? There's another way of thinking about this. Perhaps Eben is processing and looking back at something through altered lenses that reflects a worldview of women as always being victims, that interprets a slight joke as a form of abuse, that has an alternative agenda that reflects the radicalization she just underwent. Many conversions come with regrets over things we never regretted in the past, and often years later conditioning is blamed for not regretting that thing that was done. Why should we believe Eben is really seeing things clearer now when in fact it can be clearly demonstrated she underwent a process of radicalization in 2016 which could give an entirely different and even false meaning behind what she thinks is clarity? Perhaps the clarity itself is an alteration of facts. Number 6, quote, Ian Robertson and his book, The Winner Effect. So this is an odd book to quote from. It has to do with why successful people continue to be successful, and she, as a successful person, is now quoting it to talk about how women around the world are often not successful. In fact, she is twisting and manipulating this quote to identify herself and other American women with one of many women in the world who are unable to change their situation, which we know is not true in the Western world for the most part, and more so in the case of Eben Rachel Wood. Eben here is trying to reinforce her victimization by society to manipulate us into thinking she was conditioned to stay in an abusive relationship. Number 7, quote, my experience with domestic violence was this. So everything she describes in these paragraphs are not necessarily violence. Perhaps they are when you interpret them to be so 10 years later, but the reality is Eben makes everything sound so ominous that it is only her tone that makes it sound bad, not the actual description. The only thing she mentions that really is a red flag is where she talks about threats made to her life. And this is in another article, but she describes Manson as performing sick rituals on her, but does not explain why these sick rituals took place, at least from his perspective, and what was the context. It says that there's a previous article on whether or not Manson wanted to kill Eben. This sick ritual was in fact Manson filming a movie with Eben, either for one of his film projects or his music video for the song I'm Gonna Kill You like they do in the movies, the videos of which can be seen in the linked article. Okay. But it's clearly fake and she's acting. Now she wants us to believe these things are real. Okay, so the acting in his music videos and his films, she now wants us to think that those are real. Okay. Number 8, Eben likes to legitimize her claims of what happened to her by identifying an experience with a psychological word or condition, and one she presents here is quote-unquote tonic immobility. She seems to think that the image of being a frozen victim is powerful, so she runs with it. She uses the word 6 times in her testimony, and whenever she says it, there is a quiver in her voice. She loves the realm of something she thinks validates her to the world, when in reality they show her to be an amateur psychologist who read a few books and now is able to see things quote-unquote clearly. In fact, it is perhaps by reading all these psychology and self-improvement books that led her to be radicalized in the first place, a radicalization which led her on the path of searching for a political platform on which to base her activism, most inspired by living in the Donald Trump era, as she has gone into linked on in the previous writings. Okay. Number 9, Eben then goes on for 2 paragraphs to talk about her other rape at a bar by someone she still has not named to this day, Whether this actually happened or if it happened as she said it did, we don't know yet. Okay. She talks about it in light of her alleged rape by Manson and how numb and frozen she felt the second time around because she was used to it by then. Oh, please. Number 10, as of right now, quote, as of right now, even if I went after one of my attackers, it wouldn't matter because under law, what happened to me was considered, quote unquote, given with my full consent, end quote. So Evan is admitting here that she was raped not according to the law, but raped according to how she interprets her experience. Furthermore, this is just more about Evan being not only victimized by society, but by the law. So yeah, she's clearly admitting there's no rape considered, it's not considered rape by the law. She interprets it as rape, even if it technically isn't. Number 11, quote, the things my attacker whispered. It should be clarified that she's not talking about Manson here, but about her second rapist, who has not been named. The way she describes her second in this paragraph seems as over the top as her accusations about Manson, so it makes me lean towards her continuing to fabricate the facts. But it is a good opportunity for her to reinforce how she is a victim of the law because she knows she has no legal case no matter how much she wants to make things up. Number 12, quote, we still victim blame because we don't realize there are two victims of rape, end quote. In my opinion, this is one of the more disgusting parts of her testimony, and it shows how mentally ill Evan is. Simply put, in her mind, women are conditioned to be raped and men are conditioned to rape. This falls in line with Evan's ignorant activist platform wherein she wants to bring about change. This is almost as crazy, perhaps more so, as her equating all Trump supporters with victims of abuse. Yes, she does believe this. Okay, so it was her that believed that. All of Evan's accusations are based on the worldview that women are conditioned by society to be raped while men are conditioned to rape. No wonder she has such a warped view of her relationship with Manson, which bears no resemblance to the actual facts and the evidence supporting those facts. Moreover, her claim is a personal theory and not a fact, and therefore she should present scientific studies confirming her theory if there are any. Number 13, Evan goes on to legitimize her victimization with more psychological terms like PTSD, gaslighting, lunacy, anything that will make her sound like she knows what she is talking about. Okay. So it says here, if someone falls down the stairs by accident, they may have PTSD in association with stairs and may avoid them altogether. Just because someone has PTSD, which we associate with war veterans, does not mean they suffer from the same level of PTSD as a war veteran. Okay, I get that. Number 14 is her suicide attempts that she talks about. Number 15, quote, I would like to say to my attackers that I don't hate you. I feel sorry for you. I'm not here to shame you. I want to understand you. So when Evan Rachel Wood gave Marilyn Manson the middle finger at one of her music performances after he appeared at the Donda listening party with Kanye West, this was not an act of hatred, but an act of empathy. This is how Evan would spin it, like everything else. Number 16, quote, this makes me think of my son, the world he will be raised in, and the day I will have to explain to him what rape means and why it happened to his mother, end quote. It's all over the internet, so I'm sure he will find out sooner or later. It makes me wonder, however, how is she conditioning her son to not be a rapist like every other man? By bringing forward her son as a single mother, she is winning over mothers, so it's a smart emotional move on her part. Number 17, quote, when I knew I was to become a mother, I prayed for a boy. Evan goes on to explain to us how paranoid and delusional she is as to why she preferred having a boy over a girl. Just read it. It shows how warped her view is of both genders. 18, quote, sexual assault is an uncontrollable act of violence. No, it's not. Sexual assault and any act of violence can be controlled if one chooses. Number 19, quote, so I am also here to advocate for men. Of course you are, because this is also part of your activist platform. Men need to be changed. Number 20, quote, how can we begin to talk about rape when we barely even teach people what good, healthy, safe, and loving sex really is? It sounds like Evan's son is going to have a lot of sex talk with his mother. I mean, I know we don't really talk about what healthy sex is, because really we shouldn't be talking about it unless it's parents with their kids doing it when they think that they should know about it. But really, healthy sex is sex with a man and a woman who are married. There you go. Very simple. So easy. So easy to explain that. A man and woman get married, and then they have sex, and they procreate and have children. That's the point. There you go. Healthy, safe, loving relations. It says here, so this is what she said, okay? When I knew I was to become a mother, I prayed for a boy. Not because I wouldn't have wanted a girl, but because I would have to protect my daughter too much, and many things would unfortunately be inevitable in her future. Then I realized it could be just as easy for my son to fall prey to the lies of society tells about men. Things like, quote, they have uncontrollable impulses to hurt people, end quote. Because, let's face it, a man having an uncontrollable impulse to engage in a sexual act is not what sexual assault is. Sexual assault is an uncontrollable act of violence against someone else's body, mind, and spirit. How cruel to tell a child this is just how all men are, and how cruel to turn a blind eye to all the ways we perpetrate this lie. Since men are often told to hide their emotions, this very behavior could be a cry for help. While women seem more prone to cry out by punishing themselves, the opposite seems to be true with the majority of men, and this deserves a much deeper look. So I'm also here to advocate for men, and especially my son, who I hope grows up knowing he is much more valuable than that, and who I can only hope I will set an example for by continuing to fight for him, myself, and all the people affected by abuse, because that is our job as parents and as leaders. The way we change starts with proper education, not just about the medical terms of sexual intercourse and how it works, but about true connection with another person. Okay, where she's talking about this with her son, okay, it's people like her that breed men like what she's acting like they are all like. They breed those type of men, just so you know. Okay, so that's her testimony. I'm not gonna go into all of that other stuff. The real reason Evan Rachel Wood checked herself into a mental hospital. It says that she has no shame about it. So it was her suicide attempt. She hadn't eaten or slept in 3 days and felt like you dropped me, I would shatter. I felt like nothing, she says. My mind was not a peaceful place. My mind at the time was filled with scars and shadows and most importantly, so much shame. I was struggling with PTSD and didn't know it. PTSD is considered a mental illness. Yeah, blah, 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 blah. I'd struggled with anxiety and panic attacks during the course of my life, but this was a whole other level of fear. I heard my name in my ear while I slept, which would jolt me awake. In my hazy stupor, I would see shadows, figures of people in my room. I would scream and they would dissipate. I was afraid to be alone, but I also couldn't be around people. I could barely leave my own house. I was too afraid to go outside. I couldn't sleep because every little noise was deafening. I was defensive, I was impulsive, and I had no healthy coping mechanisms yet. I lost friends, I lost job opportunities. So while in the mental hospital, she talks about how she got to know a lot of interesting people, but she began to finally get to know herself. She realized she could be accepted and liked for who she really was. Great. She writes, I have continued my therapy. Eventually, I weaned myself off of medication because I felt like once I was on my feet, I didn't like the way it made me feel or how it made me not feel. It got me where I needed to be, and now I'm able to cope on my own. So the commentator says, my first impression reading the article is how fake and ungenuine it sounds. I'm not necessarily saying she didn't go to a mental hospital or felt depressed and all that, but the anecdotes that accompany the experience do not seem real. Maybe it's her style of writing. Every few paragraphs or so, it sounds like a self-promotional piece. It is very well crafted, sort of like a movie where you hit complete bottom, but it concludes with a happy ending. Yeah, there's a lot of ego. Her favorite subject is herself. I get it. Yeah. So timeline is very important here. Evan says she entered the mental hospital when she was 22. She was not in the mental hospital while she was with Manson, so this leaves us with either 2 months before December of 2009, prior to her engagement, or after August of 2010, which only leaves her a few weeks before her birthday on September 7th when she becomes 23, and it seems the latter is the best possibility. This is a major problem with this article and its credibility. No dates are given, no real background information, no context. We have no information on the setting, such as what state the hospital was in, the names of doctors or people she encountered, even just their first names. It is a very personal article written in a very impersonal way. It is like something she conjured in her imagination rather than experienced in reality. One of the oddest things about this article is that she talks about attempting suicide but never tells us how. Did she actually attempt to commit suicide, or did she think about it? I believe Evan confuses PTSD with paranoia, probably. She said, my PTSD was caused by multiple rapes and a severely abusive relationship that went on for years. She sounds here like she was in an abusive marriage for many years. We know that if she entered the mental hospital before her engagement, she had only been with Manson for a few months, or shy of 2 years, while if it was after, then the total amount of time of her relationship was about 2.5 years. When she says, I struggle with anxiety and panic attacks, she blames all her mental illnesses on her alleged abusive relationship with Manson. But even here, as she has done in many other places, she admits that she was suffering with mental illness for years before Manson. Exactly, like Amber Heard. The silence was deafening, but I must be honest, I was so relieved to feel safe, to feel taken care of, and to feel like no one could find me and hurt me. Here she is describing her first night in a mental hospital. In May of 2020, she fled Los Angeles for Nashville with her son Jack without telling his father, Jamie Bell, saying it was because her life and the life of her son were in danger from Manson. Is she projecting her 2019 paranoia into her 2010 experience? Has she always been paranoid? Yeah, maybe. So yeah, that's just all of that. So 8 revealing things we learned about Evan Rachel Wood in an interview from 2020 in light of what has transpired since. Evan's unclear distinction between reality and fantasy. I'm just going to read like the little notes. I'm not going to go into the commentary. Cajillionaire was a role Evan took to deal with the struggles of her upbringing. The script for her abuser came from her role as an abuser in Allure. Her role in Westworld should not be underestimated. Evan uses the pandemic to tell us how awesome she is. During the pandemic, Evan studied psychology and life coaching. Evan reveals she was involved in passing the coercive control bill. Evan has been unusually supportive of Rose McGowan. So, that's a little weird. Is there collusion between Evan and Rachel Wood and Rolling Stone magazine to bring down Marilyn Manson? So, Rolling Stone tweeted out, Marilyn Manson was a media darling for years, reveling in his provocative persona. Offstage, exes allege he was an abuser who made their lives hell. But that's actually not true. So, in her documentary, Phoenix Rising, she claims that Marilyn Manson said, quote, Hitler was the first rock star, end quote, as she desperately tries to build a case that Manson was obsessed with Nazism and an admirer of Hitler. Which, by the way, there is a video of Evan Rachel Wood backstage at one of his concerts, and you can see her doing the Nazi salute, by the way. This is a claim that is easily disproved, and as I pointed out in my review of Part 1 of Phoenix Rising, it is very well known to those familiar with Manson's career that he has never said anything positive about Nazism and Hitler, and in fact has clearly stated in a few places that Jesus Christ was the first rock star. Instead, the one who implied Hitler was the first rock star was a musical idol held dear by both Manson and Evan, David Bowie. During his Thin White Duke era and a period of intense drug use, Bowie spoke tongue-in-cheek through that persona as if he supported fascism and admired Hitler. Okay, who cares? So it says, yes, I found where Manson said Jesus Christ was the first rock star. He said it in a few interviews in the early 2000s. It was also in an essay he wrote titled The Dead Rock Star for Rolling Stone magazine, published on May 15th of 2003. The problem is, if you go to the Rolling Stone website, you can't find this essay titled The Dead Rock Star. Manson has written a total of 4 essays for Rolling Stone, and 3 of them, Columbine, Whose Fault Is It?, The Doors, David Bowie, Changed My Life Forever, can be easily found on the website for Rolling Stone, but the essay The Dead Rock Star is nowhere to be found. To read this essay, you have to go to the Manson Wiki website, where this and other essays by Manson can be found. This begs the question, why does Rolling Stone have all of Manson's essays on the website except this one? This prompted me to investigate further. So on the Blabbermouth website, I found an article from April 29, 2003 that gave me the link to Manson's essay, The Dead Rock Star, when it did appear on the website for Rolling Stone. and then here's the link. And then when you click on it, it says page not found. What this tells me is that this essay once appeared on the website for Rolling Stone, but for some reason is no longer at the same link. What I did next was I took that link from 2003 and brought up its history in the Wayback Machine to see when exactly the essay was removed from the website. And this is what came up. So when you pull it up, what, is that 2006? So saved 13 times between June 2nd, 2003 and June 25th, 2021. I'm not sure exactly what that means because I don't know how to use the Wayback Machine. If we see what the article looked like in 2003, this is what comes up, okay? Here we see that between June 2nd, 2003 and January 25th, 2021, there were 3 updates made to that web page. On November 9th, 2006, the last update was made and it remained in place without interruption until January 25th, 2021. And the essay appears to have been removed on that day, and we get the same message as above. In fact, all the essays except one were removed that day from the 35th anniversary issue, even though their entire other catalog is still on their website with few exceptions. Alright. Why would the essay be removed on January 25th, 2021? Could it have something to do with the fact that just a few days later, on February 1st, 2021, Evan Rachel Wood, who 5 years earlier exclusively revealed to Rolling Stone that she was abused and raped by 2 men, came out and named Marilyn Manson as her abuser? Maybe. Before Evan named Marilyn Manson as her abuser, we know that there were people who knew that Evan was referring to Manson directly from Evan herself. For example, from 2020 up until 2022, Evan had hired Amy Berg and her vast crew to film the documentary Phoenix Rising. Also on January 21st, 2021, Senator Susan Rubio wrote a letter to the director of the FBI in order to open up an investigation against Marilyn Manson. So, there you go. We also know that Corey Grow and Jason Newman from Rolling Stone began what they call a quote-unquote in-depth investigation into the allegations against Marilyn Manson for 9 months. The result of this so-called investigation was published on November 24th, 2021, entitled Marilyn Manson, The Monster Hiding in Plain Sight. What is eerily missing from their investigation is any significant mention of Evan Rachel Wood. She is not even interviewed. If Evan Rachel Wood, before she named Manson, hired a documentary film crew by a celebrated documentarian to document an investigation against Marilyn Manson and notified the government to conduct an investigation against Manson, it is so hard to believe that Evan Rachel Wood notified someone over at Rolling Stone, the premier music magazine with investigative journalists, before she came out on social media to conduct an investigation against Manson with the assurance that the media would get behind her. We know Evan was lying when she said that Manson said Hitler was the first rock star. We know that the primary source of Manson saying Jesus was the first rock star was in Rolling Stone in his 2003 essay, The Dead Rock Star. We know that the Rolling Stone had conducted an investigation that was widely biased against Manson and was many months in the making with supposedly 55 testimonies, the great majority of which were anonymous. We know that part 1 of Phoenix Rising had been filmed by the end of 2020, which is where Evan talks about Manson saying Hitler was the first rock star. We also know that Rolling Stone removed Manson's essay just a few days before Evan named Marilyn Manson as her abuser, which resulted in Manson getting headline news around the world and people doing deep dives into his writings and interviews to find clues of his alleged behavior. However, if they looked at the website of Rolling Stone, they would never find Manson's essay, which would contradict Evan's statement against Manson in her soon-to-be-released documentary. So you have to go to a fan site, right, to find it. But why would there be a cover-up by Rolling Stone? In November of 2016, Evan Rachel Wood was featured in Rolling Stone with a photo shoot, and she talked about her past abuse. According to Evan herself a year later, in November 2017 essay she wrote for Nylon, there had been some debate over at Rolling Stone as to whether or not her story of abuse merited a cover story for Rolling Stone that month. It was decided by Rolling Stone to not give her the cover. According to Evan, her story should have merited her first cover with Rolling Stone, and she felt annoyed by this. But to add insult to injury, they instead gave the cover story to the Rolling Stones, who had been on the cover of the magazine named for them 24 times already, while it had been over a year since they put a female on the cover, she says. The disaster she was referring to was the election of Donald Trump as president. When the election results rolled in, blah, 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 we don't care. So since then, Eben has sought justice from Rolling Stone and other media sources. So it seems like maybe that's why. So Eben had already been in the process of covering up her own Nazi-like behavior by claiming to file a police report in December 2020. Her claim was later proven false against the ones who released those photos and videos, and later falsely claiming she was underage and drugged. Part of the final cover-up was to get rid of that essay by Manson from a credible music magazine so she could turn the Nazi accusations away from her and focus them on Manson. Yeah. Okay, so they must have talked about this here. They must have said something about her doing that Nazi salute at the concert. But yeah. So that seems to be why. Somehow she seems to have convinced Rolling Stone to aid in her cover-up in exchange for an exclusive investigation that would help them restore their reputation. Either that or Eben's girlfriend at the time and known website hacker and grifter Ilma Gore hacked into the Rolling Stone website and got rid of it, but that's a bit of a risky alternative. Was there a collusion between Eben Rachel Wood and Rolling Stone magazine to bring down Marilyn Manson? You decide. And then they had the Rolling Stone attempted an investigation into Marilyn Manson case and failed miserably, if you want to check that out. I don't know how long we've been going, so I think I'm going to end it here because I don't want to give too much information all at one time because then that's overwhelming to sit and listen to. So we're going to stop there. So we kind of got the startup story, their background of how they met and everything, and her background, and then kind of her collusion with some other people to bring Marilyn Manson down. So I'll do another video next Thursday, and we can talk about her accusations, and we will slowly make our way through all of the accusers, all of their accusations, because we have probably about 2 years before anything ever goes to trial. So we've got time to catch up, and we're going to catch up. So if you want to look into all of this yourself and just actually go and read everything, you can do that. MarilynMansonUncanceled.com. I think it's very, very interesting, and I don't know if I can say it enough that we can't allow precedents like this to be set where women can just come forward and make false allegations about men and everybody just believes them automatically, and then we find out later on that they were lies after years of screwing up someone's life, causing them to lose their job or their reputation or whatever it may be, and they can't amend that and fix it, so now their lives are over, and these women walked away with it and got away with it, and nothing happens to them. But then when women come forward with real abuse stories, people tend not to believe them because so many women have come forward and been lying. Now we can't believe any woman, right? So we can't allow that to happen. We need to take things seriously, but we don't want to automatically start bringing someone down and ruining their careers and reputations just on what someone says. We can take what they say and we can say, all right, we're going to look into this. And once we come to a conclusion, once we look into it and see what we find and do an investigation, if it's true, then we'll move forward. But if it's false, then at least we didn't lie and bring down someone and make them lose their livelihoods over lies. We need to stop just jumping on the bandwagon with it, okay? We need to start looking into it more and taking it more seriously. So, that's all I have to say. I hope that you'll come back on Monday for the regular podcast and that you'll come back next Thursday. And if you really like learning about this and looking into it and all of it, I personally, like I said, I think it's interesting, and I enjoy anything that has to do with the law, culture, politics, whatever it is. I just find it fascinating, and I find it fascinating why people do what they do. I truly do. I don't care about psychology, but I do find people fascinating. So, yeah, I'll do this again next week, and we'll continue with part C of Eben Rachel Wood's accusations. So, I hope you had a good time, and go to my YouTube channel, follow me there. Hit the notification bell and watch my other videos, like, share, subscribe, and go to Rumble and find it there too, where I don't get censored, and my link tree is in my description boxes so you can get to my social media accounts. And I hope you have a good rest of your day. God bless.